That night, thunder roared across the pitch-black sky, and lightning flashed outside the window, slicing through the darkness with a cold, stark brilliance. Emma woke with a start, her back damp with cold sweat, soaking through her nightshirt. She couldn't explain the unease that weighed heavily on her chest. At the foot of the bed, Toby, her loyal collie, had sprung to his feet, ears perked and eyes locked on the door to the living room, as if he were waiting for something. "What is it, Toby?" Emma whispered, her voice cracking against the silence of the night. Toby let out a low bark, his tail wagging faintly, but his stance tense with alertness. The unsettling feeling pushed Emma to get out of bed, her bare feet brushing against the cold hardwood floor. Slowly, she made her way toward the living room, each step dragging through an eerie silence that seemed to stretch endlessly. When she opened the door, Emma froze. Jamie was standing there, soaked from the rain that pelted down outside, his clothes clinging to him and his eyes shadowed with a sorrow she couldn't name. He didn't say a word at first, just looked at her with an expression she had never seen before, an unsettling mix of hesitation and pain. "Jamie, what are you doing here at this hour?" Emma asked, her voice trembling slightly. Her question was drowned out by another clap of thunder rolling across the sky. Toby padded over to Jamie, weaving around his legs as if trying to comfort him. Emma had never seen Jamie like this, always the optimist, always radiating joy. But tonight it was as though he had brought the storm into her little house. "Emma, I need to talk to you right now." Jamie's voice was hoarse, nearly breaking. He stepped inside, his waterlogged shoes leaving damp trails across the floor. Emma didn't stop him, though her heartbeat quickened with each step he took. Jamie didn't wait for her to respond before he continued, his words tumbling out in a rush. "I can't keep quiet anymore. I can't pretend that everything between us is just friendship," as if trying to etch his thoughts into her very soul. Emma stood frozen, her hands clutching her cardigan like a shield. She understood what he was saying, but no words came to her lips. Toby leapt onto the couch, settling between them as if he were the last familiar thing in a moment that felt utterly foreign. Yet, even Toby's comforting presence couldn't dissolve the tension that hung thick in the air. "Jamie, I don't think that we ... double quotes," Emma stammered, her words faltering as Jamie interrupted, his gaze igniting with a mix of frustration and raw emotion. "I don't need you to say anything right now, Emma. I just need you to know I've been in love with you for a long time. I can't hide it anymore." Emma inhaled deeply, her chest tightening at the weight of his confession. Outside, the storm howled against the house, but inside, the silence felt heavier, oppressive. Toby nudged her hand with his nose as if to remind her that this moment was real, this house, this friendship, and this dog who had always been there. But she couldn't shake the question. After tonight, would any of it remain the same? She lowered herself into the chair opposite Jamie, her gaze flitting between fear and something she didn't want to name, Jamie. "I don't know what to say. I don't think I'm ready ... Before she could finish, Jamie rose to his feet, his expression a mixture of sadness and resolve. "It's okay, Emma. I didn't come here to make you feel the same way. I just needed you to know, and whatever you decide, I'll still be here. But I need some time too, to stop feeling like I'm just a friend." He turned toward the door, leaving Emma and Toby in a silence that felt more profound than the storm outside. Rain continued to drum against the roof as Emma watched his silhouette fade into the downpour. Her heart churned with emotions she couldn't name, a knot tightening in her chest. And for the first time, she realized that even Toby, with all his loyalty and understanding, couldn't answer the one question pressing on her mind. Did she have the courage to cross that line? Or would she lose Jamie forever? Emma sat quietly in the dimly lit room, the soft yellow glow of the lamp casting long shadows across the walls. Outside, the rain continued to fall in a distant rhythm, a melancholic song she couldn't escape. Toby lay curled at her feet, his small head resting gently on her lap as though offering silent comfort. But the storm inside Emma's heart was one that nothing, not even Toby's unwavering loyalty, could ease. Jamie's words echoed endlessly in her mind, playing over and over like a broken record. Stealing her breath with each replay, she reached for the journal on the shelf, the one she hadn't opened in months. Her fingers hesitated as she touched its worn cover, but finally, she flipped through the pages. The scrawled words on the paper carried fragments of her thoughts, secrets she had never spoken aloud, not even to Jamie, the one person she trusted more than anyone else in the world. But there, in the middle of the journal, bold and unguarded, were the words that made her pause. Jamie has always been the one who makes me feel safe, but is that love or just the comfort of a friend? Emma let out a heavy sigh, her eyes lingering on the lines as though searching for answers within them. Memories she had buried began to resurface, pulling her back to a time when Jamie had walked into her life like a steady light in the darkest of nights. It was a time when everything she believed in had been shattered. The man she had loved deeply, the one she had thought would be her forever, had betrayed her. He left her not only with a broken heart, but also with a haunting sense of worthlessness. She had once thought that love was everything. She had invested all her trust, her hope, even her future into someone who, in the end, had only seen her as a temporary choice. When it all fell apart, Emma felt like a fragment of herself, a misplaced piece in the puzzle of someone else's life. And then there was Jamie in those dark, uncertain days. He was the one who showed up without needing an invitation or offering empty words. He simply sat beside her on the old sofa, holding a cup of hot cocoa and letting the silence mend what words could not. Jamie never pushed her to talk or to heal faster than she was ready. He was simply there, a steady wall to lean on when she thought she couldn't stand anymore. It was Jamie, too, who had suggested she adopt Toby. A dog can make everything better, he had said with a smile. And Jamie had been right. Toby became her anchor, her constant, the one companion who would never leave or hurt her. But now, as Toby slept peacefully by her side, Emma realized it wasn't just Toby who had held her steady all this time. It had always been Jamie, too. She thought back to the countless nights filled with laughter, when Jamie would tell his ridiculous stories, doing anything to make her smile. She remembered the little things, the way he would bring her favorite snacks without her asking, or how he would let her vent about her work for hours without complaint. But beneath all of it, there were those moments she couldn't forget, how his eyes lingered on her just a little longer than they should have, or how his voice would soften when he spoke her name. She had once brushed it off as her imagination, but now she wasn't so sure. Her gaze fell to the photo on the table. It was a snapshot from a summer day, the three of them, Emma, Jamie, and Toby smiling brightly under the warm sun. Toby was just a puppy then, tripping over his own feet, and Jamie had his arm casually slung over her shoulder, looking at it now. Emma felt a pang in her chest. Jamie had never left her side, even when she didn't feel she deserved such steadfastness. But the thought sent a wave of uncertainty crashing over her. She didn't want to lose Jamie. He was the one person who understood her, who would never let her down. But what if crossing the line between friendship and love meant losing everything they had built together? What if they couldn't go back? The fear of the unknown loomed large, threatening to paralyze her. Emma sat frozen, staring out the window at the rain that still fell steadily. Part of her wanted to run after Jamie, to say something, anything that might keep him from slipping further away. But another part, the part that carried the weight of her past heartbreaks and betrayals, held her back. She didn't know if she had the courage to trust love again, to take that leap and risk falling. The rain began to quiet, leaving only the faintest patter against the roof. The silence in the room grew heavy, broken only by Toby's soft breathing. He stirred, shifting his head to look up at her with those big, understanding eyes, as if asking a silent question. And what about you? Emma, what will you do with your heart? The next morning, sunlight seeped through the gaps in the curtains, but Emma felt no warmth. She woke with a heaviness in her chest, as if her heart was suspended between two extremes, fear and longing. Toby stood beside her bed, his tail wagging softly, his bright eyes urging her to get up and start the day. But Emma remained still, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together the fragments of the night before the sudden chime of the doorbell pulled her out of her thoughts. She hurried to the door, her hair tied loosely, a thin cardigan draped over her shoulders. When she opened it, there stood Jamie, his eyes weary but resolute, holding Toby's leash in his hand. Before Emma could say anything, Toby bolted out the door, his tail wagging furiously, as if he had somehow known Jamie would be there. "We need to talk," Jamie said, his voice low but firm. Without waiting for her response, he stepped inside, and Toby trotted in behind him, oblivious to the weight in the air. Emma shut the door, hesitating before she took a seat across from Jamie. She clasped her hands together tightly, feeling the intensity of his gaze not accusing, but expectant, as if he were ready for whatever she had to say. "Jamie, I don't know where to begin," Emma finally said, her voice shaky with uncertainty. She looked down at her hands, feeling as though every word she could muster would somehow be a lie, even if unintentional. Jamie shook his head, the corner of his mouth lifting in a sad smile. "You don't need to start, Emma. I think I've waited long enough." Toby, sensing the tension, leapt onto the couch and settled between them, his white eyes flickering back and forth as if trying to understand. Jamie reached over, stroking Toby's head, grounding himself before he spoke again. "You know, Emma, we hold back because we think it will protect the relationship. But sometimes it's the silence that breaks everything apart. I've loved you for a long time, and I can't keep pretending nothing's changed." Emma froze. Jamie's words struck her like a bolt of lightning. Her eyes widened, and for a moment she couldn't find her voice. She had always known Jamie was important to her, always felt that their connection went beyond friendship. She had never imagined he would say it aloud. Before she could respond, a loud clatter echoed from the kitchen. Toby, in his curiosity, had tugged on his leash and toppled his water bowl onto the floor. Emma sprang to her feet, crouching down to clean up the mess, her face flushed with a heat she couldn't hide. Jamie followed, stepping closer to her. His voice was steady, a tinge with vulnerability. "Emma, you don't need to give me an answer right now, but I need you to know that I can't keep watching you avoid what we both feel." Toby barked again, running to the door as if sensing the moment needed an escape. Jamie bent down, picking up the leash, and looked at Emma. "How about a walk? Toby needs the fresh air, and maybe we do too." Emma nodding, unable to find the words to refuse, they stepped outside, the warm sunlight spilling over the familiar path to the park. Toby bounded ahead, his tail wagging with endless enthusiasm, blissfully unaware of the heavy silence hanging between the two humans walking behind him. At the park, Toby suddenly yanked at the leash, darting toward a cluster of bushes. Emma and Jamie ran after him, calling his name, but he didn't stop. When they finally found him, Toby was digging furiously at the base of a large tree, determined to unearth whatever had caught his attention. They both laughed at his antics, the sound breaking through the tension for just a moment. Neither noticed how close they had come to standing beside one another. Jamie turned to Emma, his eyes reflecting a quiet determination. "Emma, I can't stay in this place where we keep pretending nothing's changed, but I won't force you. If you truly feel I'm not someone you could ever love, I'll walk away. But if there's even a small part of you that feels the same as I do, please just give us a chance." Emma felt the pain in Jamie's voice, the weight of what he was asking. It wasn't just a question. It was a plea, a vulnerable offering of everything he had. Toby, as if sensing the gravity of the moment, stepped closer, resting his small head against Emma's leg. She reached down to stroke him, drawing strength from his quiet presence, then slowly looked up at Jamie. "I don't know if I can do this, Jamie. I am scared. But I think I'm more scared of losing you," Emma said, her voice trembling, but filled with an honesty that she couldn't hold back. Jamie didn't speak. He simply nodded, the hope in his eyes growing brighter. Toby barked, breaking the silence like a joyful exclamation point. Both Emma and Jamie looked at him, then at each other, and for the first time, Emma felt that maybe, just maybe, She was ready to cross the line they had both danced around for so many years. The sky had deepened into a dusky purple as the sun slipped below the horizon, its fading light casting long shadows through the towering trees of the park. Emma and Jamie walked slowly side by side, while Toby bounded ahead joyfully, hopping around clusters of wild flowers. The cool evening air was soothing, almost enough to dissolve the tension between them, yet a heavy silence lingered, a silence neither Emma nor Jamie dared to break. They reached the familiar bench under the sprawling oak tree, a spot that had witnessed countless evenings of shared laughter and conversations. Emma sank onto the bench, gripping Toby's leash tightly as though it tethered her to something solid amidst the swirl of emotions inside her. Jamie stood before her, his posture straight, his expression unyielding. He didn't sit down. Instead, he simply stared at her, his gaze steady and penetrating, as though willing her to lower the defenses she had spent years building. "Emma," Jamie began, his voice soft but carrying an undeniable edge of resolve. "I need to know. I can't keep doing this. You have to give me an answer. Are you so afraid of love that you can't even give us a chance?" Emma dropped her head, her eyes evading his. Jamie deserved the truth, but how could she possibly explain the turmoil inside her, the painful memories of betrayal, the fear of losing the one person she trusted, and the safety she had found in their friendship? All these tangled feelings collided in her mind, leaving her unsure of how to respond. "Jamie, Her voice cracked, and she drew a shaky breath, summoning her courage. "I don't want to lose you. You're the only person who's always been there for me, the only one who makes me feel safe. But if this doesn't work, if we fail, I don't think I can bear losing even our friendship." Jamie's gaze softened as he sat beside her, close but not quite touching. "Don't you see, Emma? Saying nothing hurts more than failing ever could. We've been holding back for too long, and I can't keep pretending. I don't need you to be sure. I just need you to give me one chance, even if it's the smallest one." Toby leapt onto the bench, wedging himself between them. His small head rested on Emma's lap, as if trying to calm her with his silent, steadfast support. Emma looked down at him, her fingers instinctively brushing through his fur. Toby's wide, curious eyes gazed up at her, seeming to urge her forward, as though even he understood the gravity of her decision. But before Emma could answer, a distant rumble of thunder rolled through the sky. Toby's ears perked up, and with a bark, he jumped off the bench and darted toward a nearby thicket. "Toby," Emma called, panic flaring in her voice as she scrambled to her feet. Jamie was already moving, grabbing her hand and pulling her with him as they chased after the dog. They found Toby on the other side of the bushes, pouring eagerly at a small hole he had dug beneath a large tree. But it wasn't just Toby's antics that caught their attention. Headlights from a car emerged in the distance, drawing closer until the vehicle came to a stop a few meters away. A man stepped out, and Emma's chest tightened, as if all the air had been sucked from her lungs. It was Alex, the man who had once held her heart and then shattered it. Alex stood there, exuding the same confidence and aloofness he always had. His gaze landed on Emma, and his lips curved into a strained smile. "Emma, it's been a long time," he said, his voice low and measured. "I didn't expect to see you here." Emma instinctively took a step back, her body recoiling as a flood of memories surged through her. Jamie moved immediately, positioning himself between her and Alex. His stance was protective, his eyes cold as they locked on the man before him. "What are you doing here?" Jamie asked, his voice sharp enough to cut through the tension. "I was just passing through," Alex replied, though his eyes lingered on Emma. I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything." The words were simple, yet they struck Emma like a blow to the chest. There had been a time when she had longed to hear those words from Alex, a time when she thought they might heal her broken heart. But now they felt hollow, meaningless. They didn't mend the scars he had left. They only reminded her of the emptiness she had carried for so long. Jamie turned to Emma, his expression softening but filled with concern. "Emma, let's go," he said quietly, but his tone left no room for argument. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a promise to shield her from whatever pain lingered in Alex's presence. Emma nodded, her fingers tightening around Toby's leash. The three of them turned away, leaving Alex standing alone in the fading light. Yet, even as they walked back toward the bench, the weight of old wounds still clung to Emma's chest, refusing to let go. When they reached the bench, Emma sank down onto it once more, her body heavy with exhaustion, not from the chase, but from the storm raging inside her. Jamie sat beside her, his hand resting lightly on hers, his touch warm, grounding her in the present, pulling her away from the shadows of the past. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt the faint stirrings of clarity. "Jamie," she whispered, lifting her eyes to meet his. "I'm scared, but I think I can't keep letting fear hold me back anymore." Jamie's hand tightened around hers, a small smile tugging at his lips. "You don't have to be scared, Emma. We'll face it together, as long as you trust me." Toby settled at their feet, his tail wagging softly, as though offering his own silent approval. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Emma felt the weight lifting from her chest, the chains of her doubt and fear beginning to loosen. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she believed she wouldn't have to face it alone. Jamie and Toby would be there, steadfast, unwavering, and this time, she was ready to let love in. The night had fully settled over the park, enveloping it in a serene quietness. Only the faint rustling of the wind through the trees and the soft padding of Emma and Jamie's footsteps could be heard. Ahead of them, Toby trotted with a steady wag of his tail, the glow of the streetlights casting a golden shimmer on his fur. Emma walked slowly, her thoughts swirling, the echoes of the evening's events still reverberating in her mind. But with every step Jamie took beside her, she felt a quiet steadiness, a rhythm that grounded her amidst the chaos in her heart. They returned to Emma's small home, the porch light spilling its warm glow over the steps. Toby dashed through the open door, making a beeline for his water bowl. As though nothing unusual had transpired, Emma lingered on the threshold, hesitating for a moment before turning to face Jamie. He stood just outside, his hand still gripping Toby's leash, his gaze soft but full of quiet anticipation. In that moment, Emma realized she didn't need more explanations, nor more time to think. What she needed was to move forward, to step into the space where Jamie stood waiting. "Jamie," she said softly, her voice barely louder than the night breeze. "I think I've been wrong all this time. I let fear control me, but now I understand. I don't want to lose you. Not ever." Jamie's eyes lit up, as if her words were the ones he had been waiting to hear his entire life. He stepped onto the porch, closing the distance between them with deliberate ease. His smile was warm, steady, and full of reassurance. "Emma, you'll never lose me. I've been here from the start, and I'll be here always." She didn't wait any longer. Emma stepped forward, feeling the warmth radiating from him as he gently reached for her hand. His touch was light, a final silent reassurance, and in that moment, all the barriers she had built up over the years crumbled. There was no fear, no shadow of the past, just the two of them, two hearts finally aligning in a way they were always meant to. When Jamie pulled her into an embrace, Emma felt the world around her still. She closed her eyes, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against her cheek, a heartbeat that promised he would never leave her side. At their feet, Toby sat wagging his tail with unstrained enthusiasm, as though he understood that everything had finally fallen into place. They sat together on the porch steps, side by side, Toby curling up at their feet. The night air carried the faint scent of wild flowers from the nearby fields, and the moonlight bathed them in its soft glow. Emma glanced at Jamie, and for the first time in years, she smiled a real, full smile, free of hesitation or worrying. "You know," she said, her voice warm under the light of the stars, "Toby was the first being in my life that I trusted completely, and now you're the second." Jamie chuckled, a low comforting sound, and he reached out to brush a strand of hair from her face. "Then I promise, Emma, I'll never let you down." They sat in silence, their gazes drifting to the night sky above, letting the quiet stretch comfortably between them. Toby let out a soft sigh, his breathing calm and steady, as though he, too, was content with the peace that had finally settled. For the first time in what felt like forever, Emma felt no fear, no need to hide. She knew tomorrow would bring new challenges, a journey unknown, but this time she wouldn't face it alone. Jamie and Toby would always be there, a constant presence, a promise she could finally believe in, and in that tranquil moment, under the starry sky, Emma felt the first stirrings of something new: hope, love, and the knowledge that this was the beginning of a chapter unlike any she had ever known. A chapter of togetherness, of unwavering trust, and of footsteps that would forever walk side by side.